Okay, talking from experience as a JW for 40 years, I resigned 3 years ago. Here's the deception. The proliferation of literature. I mean, back in those days we used to have magazines every 2 weeks. Now they've gone to once a month or whatever because of financial crisis. And you go to an assembly, a convention, and you think, wow, God must be behind this because we have this convention. Think about this carefully, JWs. Satan is the ruler of this world. Would he not cut across that and stop you meeting in conventions and stop the proliferation of literature? It's so free and easy, isn't it? So available. That's the problem. The deception that God is behind this organization. Go back to the 1st century. They were banned, fed to lions for preaching the word. And yet now we have this scenario where the so-called organization, God ordained, Jehovah's Witnesses, have freedom of speech everywhere. Think about it. The prophets of old were told to zip their mouth and suffered greatly. The Jehovah's Witnesses are controlled by one God, and that is not Yahuwah, as you call Jehovah. It's Satan, who allows them to spew out their filth, their false prophecies, like Mormons, Scientologists, etc. God is not behind this organization, the organization that makes so many false prophecies. But here's the inducement. Going back to my previous statement, it's the proliferation of literature and freely available conventions, circuit assemblies, that makes you induced into believing that God is behind this. Get real. If it was truth, the devil would make sure it was not broadcast. Do you understand that? Like in the 1st century, it will be prohibited. When I was a JW for 40 years, I thought, how come we got this freedom of speech? Going to conventions, football stadiums. If the devil is the ruler of the world, why are we allowed to do this? When the 1st century Christians were prohibited, prescribed from doing such things. A few thoughts for you, JWs. Think about it very carefully. Con men are very clever. Anyone can take this book and make merchandise out of it. It's quite simple, and many have. And you've been deceived, JWs, that if you go to a Kingdom Hall, was it twice a week now as opposed to 3 times, that you are being led by God. The Apostle Paul said that the Father does not dwell in buildings made by hands. There's a clue for you. There's a clue for you. The Father does not dwell in buildings made by hands, be it a church or a Kingdom Hall or whatever. And this idiocy, which I did for 40 years, putting a report in, how many hours have you done knocking on doors? I did that for 40 years as a pioneer, etc. Knocking on mainly empty doors, and yet I put a report down how many hours I've done. Messiah said, when you give gifts of mercy, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. Think about that. Think about that very carefully. When you give gifts of mercy, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. Do you think the apostles put a report in to 7 dudes in New York, the governing body, so called? The governing body is not even a biblical term. Be a silent witness. I don't mean zip your mouth, but do it quietly in your own forum. You haven't got to report any piece of scumbag flesh on this earth of what you do. You're not accountable to anyone except God and His Messiah. Can't believe I spent 40 years in that cult, raising a family. Mea culpa maxima. The more I look into JWs, I realise they are totally satanic, Freemasonry controlled. Yep, big time. Big time. Like Mormons, Scientologists, etc. How many hours did Messiah put in then? How many hours did the apostles put in reporting to a governing body? Makes me want to throw up.